16. Getting to Smythe and Weston's place is a little bit of a trip, but the apartment isn't far outside of the city. It gives Zook a bit of time to talk with Robertson, and it gives her a bit of time to sample his liquors. She asks him,
"Why do you have these liquors if you don't drink them? Neither do the others."
"Well, I do have more clients than just our kind, riding in my car. I do investigations for some humans, and they can have a drink during negotiations. It is also a little less awkward. I can't really show a bunch of blood if cops pull him over, but I do have an emergency stash, just in case. Also, the seat you are in, it lifts up and it is a lockable fire and bullet safe box."
She smiles, and says,
"That is pretty neat, sort of like a nifty spy car. Do you have guns that pop out?"
"Nah, but there are a few tricks just in case. Never mind all of that, we are just about there."
Robertson finishes her drink, sets the glass down in the sturdy cup holder, and looks outside her window. An apartment complex is outside and Bud is pulling into the parking lot. It is still fairly early in the night, about 2 in the early morning. As they get out of the car, Paul gets out of his. The place is a mess. When Zant let us con the place is cleaned out, she didn't mean the food containers or furniture. The place where a TV would obviously be is bare. It has nothing on the shelves other than dust spots. Dirty plates, beer and soda cans are all over. Even though the trash is empty, there are frozen pizza boxes stacked behind the trash can, and papers from notepads are on different end tables. There is a whiteboard in the living room as well, markings from dry erase markers all over it, and faded words and numbers all over as well. It is difficult to be able to tell what might have recently been written and what has been recently removed. The floor has pieces of paper all over it as well, with smudges of shoe footprints and dirt. Bedrooms are checked. A bed and small TV were in the rooms. One room is messy, like the rest of the place, but the other is at least partially organized. The closets in each room are mostly clear other than some shirts and pants.
"Robertson?"
Zook calls out in the apartment. She walks up behind him, while he is still checking on the bedroom.
"Did you ever come to their place here?"
She shakes her head.
"No, they didn't let anyone come around here to my knowledge, and I can see why. This place is gross, and it smells bad too."
"Smells bad? Like what do you mean? Does it smell like rotten eggs?"
She answers, shaking her head.
"No, it isn't gas or anything. Just that trash smell. Like it hasn't been taken out in a while, and it lingers."
Zook looks over, and smiles at her.
"Okay, well we don't need to smell, so we usually don't, so you get the pleasure of being the only person who is smelling whatever it is."
Paul asks something else of Robertson, adding in perhaps a little persuasion of his blood power.
"Can you please pick up all of this paper so we can go through it? It might have something important."
With little reason to deny a powerful vampire the request, she obliges and picks up all of the paper around, tossing it in a trash basket to eventually go through it. He then looks over at Zook.
"Hey, can you come with me to the living room? I can try to pick up some of the last few things they wrote on the board, which might help us figure something out."
Zook nods and grabs a miscellaneous notepad and pencil. Paul flips the standing portable whiteboard around to the back to see if there is anything else on it, and there were some pushpins on one side, but no papers on it. The writing side is the only side with info on it. Pressing his fingers lightly to the board, he is able to get recent impressions on the board. Zook is well versed in this process, and has done this sort of thing many times. They could feel the last markings on the board, the intent of the people writing it, and recent activity on it. It is difficult to separate a lot of the writing, but after a couple of minutes, he starts listing off some information. Initially, one of the most recent things he sees is the flight information and time. Zook compares it to the other night when Tina left on the flight, and it is true, if not close. Addresses come through as well. Zook writes down what Paul pulls from the mystery writings, and lots of erasings. On a whiteboard, if something is written and kept on the board for some time, it also leaves an imprint, which is also written down. Robertson took some time to pick up the papers around the place and brought them into the living room. She sorts through them, and most of it is trash, and doodles, but a few of the pages have some addresses on them. Between those pages and a decent amount of addresses, they are able to get as many places to check. Comparing many locations, there are 2 near the city that were last marked by Moffsburg on his wall map of the country. Another decent possible place to continue this hunt. After checking around the beds, mystery places in the bathroom, and all sorts of other possible hiding places, there were no other clues or evidence for them with which they could work.
Could your driver get us to that city during the day today, and we could continue the investigation there? It is 5, maybe 6 hours away. Can your car accommodate us both during the day?
Sure, he does that sort of thing for me sometimes. He might need a nap, but he can drive us there. We can rest for the day in my car. Zant will probably need to get some word out to the boss of that city to expect us, and see what she can do about smoothing out some information.
Paul nods in agreement. Zook sent a text to Zant. We have a city we'll need to get to in order to continue the trail, need you to make contact ahead of time so that we don't surprise anyone, and where we can meet the boss of that city for some info. Possibly a recent location for them. My driver will drive. It would take a bunch of time, and it could be sensitive taking a flight. We'll drive when we can. He notes the city so that she can make contact, and she sends a thumbs up emoji in return. He asks Robertson where they can drop her off. They have a trail to follow, and she said she can't go on some adventure. She has to stay in town. He asks if he could take her back to Zant's place. Her car is there, and her shift is done for the night. Bud drives her back. Paul leaves his car at Zant's place, and gets into Zook's car to get ready to rest. Paul has a bug-out bag ready, and puts it in Zook's car. Zook isn't nearly as prepared for a possible trip. They go back to his place just before sunrise, in enough time for him to grab a small bag, adding a few extra shirts and pants. While Zook packs, Paul is surprisingly social with the animals. Bite and Fluffers run around the yard, chasing the tennis ball Paul keeps on throwing. Paul never did speak with them using the blood power. When Zook is done packing and sees them playing around for a few minutes, he asks why, and Paul answers back.
Never thought of the need to, but these 2 are fun.
The smile on Paul's face looks genuine, but makes Zook uneasy, like it doesn't really belong there. After a few more minutes of letting them play around, and getting the critters tired out, the vampires are cutting it too close to sunrise. They have the mortals get the animals inside, and they roll into the town car for the day's rest. Bud gets some rest for most of the morning as well and then takes off on the trail in cold pursuit.